What is up, guys? My name is Matt, working for Cinematography Database, and today we're going to be talking about a little bit more depth into getting hired as a cinematographer. Now, you don't typically just get hired, especially if you're working in the indie and the industry tier of production. What's going to happen is you're going to get held and then you're going to get booked. So if you don't know what that means or it's a little bit fuzzy to you, we're going to be talking about that in this video. Okay, so to start, I'm going to walk you through the process of what it looks like to get hired as a cinematographer on a commercial, a short film, a feature, content, anything like that that's industry or higher end indie level. This is what the process looks like. So first, a director is going to call you or email you or Instagram message you or Twitter message you, Facebook Messenger. It happens on all platforms. Just believe that. I've been hired off of every single platform in this way. And they're going to talk to you about a project that they have coming up. It might be kind of casual, it might be very formal. It really ranges quite a bit. It actually might be in person, at a bar, at a film festival, at a party. Like, hey, I have this project coming up and it's at night and it has cars. Like, have you ever shot anything like that? I'm kind of worried about it. You guys start talking. If that director likes what he or she hears, they're going to pass you to the producer who's working for the production company. And the producer's job is to hire all the crew, get the locations, make sure the whole shoot actually happens on budget, on time, that sort of thing. So the producer is going to then tell you, hey, we're shooting these dates or these dates. We don't really know yet, these two, that sort of thing. This is our rate. Can you work with this? You can negotiate that if you want. That all works out. They're like, okay, cool. Can you hold these dates and these dates? We don't know which date it's going to be. It kind of depends on the location. Can you hold both of those? And you'll say yes. And your obligation to them is that if someone else calls you for a job over those dates, that you let them know that. You try to give the person that calls first and you're doing your first hold with, you're trying to give them, the courtesy of being, because you contacted me first and you held those dates first, you're obligated to basically say that if you want to book me now because someone else wants to book me, that I'm going to give you that chance because you're my first hold. So that's how that works. First hold, second hold, third hold. It gets very tricky and difficult. And at that point, if you're doing third holds for days, like 3 people are trying to hold you, you're ready for an agent. And your agents are going to do a much nicer job of finessing that. And they have assistants and lawyers and all sorts of things that are going to help you keep track of all these different jobs happening. And before we move on to booking, it's also the production company's prerogative to be able to say that, hey, you know what? We wanted to go with a separate cinematographer. Thank you for holding those dates, but we're going to go with someone else. And this is nothing personal. I mean, it is kind of personal, but it might be something that the agency wanted to work with a director or a DP that they already knew, or the director was basically trying to get another DP and you were their second best, but then that DP became available. All sorts of things happen, and it's going to happen a lot. When you're starting to get to this point, I would be holding for like 5 or 6 jobs a month, and then only some of them would actually happen. And like I said, there's all sorts of reasons. You just learn to move on with it. It's nothing personal. You just keep going. It's a small world as well. You don't want to burn bridges if they let you go. That's the prerogative, meaning that's the right of the production company to do that, even if they're holding you for the job. Great, so you're holding for this job. Let's talk about what happens when they want to book you for the job. So what happens now is that the producer is going to call you back and be like, hey, this job is a go. Your rates are approved. Agency loves you. Director still wants to work with you. I want to book you for that job. And so what that means now is a couple of things. One, it means that you have to basically block off those dates on your calendar. You can't even hold another job. So if another job calls you and you're booked on that job now, you say, hey, I'm booked. I can't take that job. Hopefully we can work together in the future. So that's what booked means for you. It means you have to block off those days on your calendar. So now we're entering a slightly grayer area of what is the production company's responsibility to you now that you're booked. In an ideal world, it means that they're going to hire you. They're for sure going to hire you. And they're not going to change the dates, and they're not going to change the rates, and they're not going to renegotiate anything. But in the real world, of course, things happen and things change. So if something happens, they've booked you for the job, but something changes in the production and say the dates moved and you're not available, or all of a sudden they want to do a different rate, or they want to change something major about the camera they said they were going to rent from you, something like that. That happens. Your job is to not get mad about this. This is production. They're just trying to make something happen. They're trying to book people, but it doesn't always work out. But here enters something very important, is contracts. Okay? Nobody likes contracts. I've never met a cinematographer in my life that enjoys making contracts, negotiating contracts, and signing contracts. Actually, I enjoy signing them now because it means things are going to happen. But one of the main things on a contract, especially if you are starting to get a little bit higher level in your career, is something called pay or play. And what that basically means is that if they book you on a project and for whatever reason that project changes dates or the project goes away or they even want to hire someone else, that production company is obligated to pay you for what they said they were going to pay you. This isn't something that everybody gets. Solo, you're not getting pay or play. Beginning level indie, you're probably also not getting pay or play. It's more towards the higher indie and the industry level stuff that you're going to even be able to even begin to bring up that subject. But it's something that's really important because as a cinematographer, someone trying to live their life and plan their life, if they book you, you're going to cross off a whole week in your schedule for that job, and you're not going to take any other work. And if a couple days before that job, they're like, oh, hey, guess what? It's not happening. And you've been turning down work, you're losing money for that whole period of work, right? For that whole week that you were holding, and they kill it. So what we do with my agency and my agent, and we fight pretty hard for this, is pay or play. So basically, if a job dies, once we're booked, and this is in a contract, I get paid even if the job doesn't happen. I was working for MTV, and we were shooting a kind of like what is now content, but it was for TV at the time, so it was technically a commercial, an on-air commercial. We were shooting for something for Justin Bieber, and we were just breaking Justin Bieber. He wasn't famous yet. No one really knew who he was, but we shot like 8 or 10 commercials over 3 days. So I got booked for a 3-day commercial for Justin with MTV, and Justin was like doing a ton of shows like any musician at that level was, and he got really sick the day before that 3-day shoot. And what happened was the production called me and they were like, hey, listen, Justin's really sick and we have to push this shoot a week in advance, or a week back or a week forward, wherever you want to think about it. Are you available that week? And I was like, yes. And then the producer told me, they're like, oh, but we're still going to pay you for those 3 days because we booked you. And I was like, so that was great. And bigger production companies can basically budget that into their schedules. They're working with big artists, big clients. And back then in like 2009 or something like that, I think we were shooting with 7Ds. It wasn't like a huge project or anything. My rate was $1,500 a day. So that was $4,500 on the line there. So I had held those 3 days, which was going to be $4,500. And if they had canceled those on me, I would basically have lost the potential to make $4,500 for that week. But they actually paid me for that job, even though it didn't happen. And then they paid me again a week later for when the shoot actually happened. So that is pay and play. So to wrap this up, I'm going to list a couple more things that are typically in a contract between a cinematographer and a production company. So number one, you need to have the dates of the shoot or shoot days. Then you need to also negotiate your rate. Obviously, those are things that are very forefront. Then you're going to need to negotiate your tech scouts. So if you have a tech scout, are you getting paid the full day? Are you going to accept a half-day rate? Or is there no pay for a tech scout? It's up to you to negotiate. Next is the issue of overtime. Now, for me on commercials, if I shoot for 10 hours, I make my day rate, and my rate's going to be hourly. Usually, that's how that gets figured out. But anything over 10 hours, it starts to get more expensive per hour. So I think it's like basically 1.5 after that, and then 2, and then 2.5. I forget how it actually works because my agent handles it at this point. But basically, the production company is de-incentivized for keeping me on set any longer than 10 hours. And that keeps us on time, and it keeps production companies on schedule, and it really de-incentivizes them from making me go into a 12, 14, 16, 18, 20-hour day, which still happens. I end up making a lot more money, but typically, because I'm going to be working the next day in most cases, I don't want to go into OT because I'd rather sleep and go home. So you have to negotiate overtime. It's something that in the beginning you have to negotiate, and once you get an agent, they handle it, which is awesome, which is way better. So after overtime, you want to negotiate the terms of payment and the schedule. So a lot of the times it's net 30, but if you're going through a payroll company, it's usually faster. So that's really depending on the kind of company and the scale of the company that you're going to be working for. The last thing I'm going to cover is travel. Now, for me, if I'm traveling out for a job, that travel day, that's a full day rate for me. Sometimes I'll accept half, but usually at this point, especially now that I run this company, if I'm traveling out to a job or we're doing multiple travel days, every day that I'm with that production company, I'm asking for my full day rate. Now, again, in the beginning, you're not even coming close to that. You're not even going to get your gas reimbursed. So don't think that that's something you get right away. That's something that comes much later on. But these are, again, things that you want to set termed in your contract. Also regarding travel, if it's a non-shoot day, because on shoot days I'm getting fed breakfast, lunch, and dinner, if I'm traveling or there's a dead day in between, not only am I going to get paid for that day, I'm also going to get a per diem, which means like per day, I think in Latin. And it usually means like $25 or like $50 or $100 sometimes. You end up with like all this like cash, a little sketchy in like a different country or different state than you're used to. It feels kind of weird, but you're going to get money to be able to go like, you know, do laundry or just do whatever you want with it. Hopefully not gamble if you're in Vegas, but hey, that's what you want to do with your money in Vegas. That's completely cool. I guess I've done that. Actually, I think that everyone's probably done that with their per diem in Vegas as you go gamble a little bit, but really you should be buying food and just living, you know? So they're bringing you all the way out there. You need to be able to live on top of making like your day rate as well. So that's a per diem. Again, not everybody gets it. It's negotiable with the production company. Okay, this is getting kind of long, but the last thing I'm going to say about contracts is that ideally it is a formal printed contract, and I'm not going to send you sample ones because that would be me giving you legal advice, and I'm not going to do anything even close to that because I've heard things on the internet with people that do that. I'm not doing that. You can do your own research if you really want to. I'm sure I could probably help you find someone that could do it, but really it's kind of the domain of agents when you get to that level. And as you're getting started, your best bet in my case is just to do it orally or write it in an email and just send it out casually. Like you're probably not going to get it double signed. And even if you did legally, unless you have a really good lawyer, because my agents have lawyers to handle this stuff if someone breaches contract, you're not going to do anything about it anyway. So contracts in the beginning, they're a little tenuous, but I think what's important is that you just lay out your terms and what you expect and what they expect. And if someone messes up, just be forgiving about it. At least you talked about it, you know. The worst is if you thought something was going to happen, like, hey, I thought I was going to get overtime after 12. And they're like, we never talked about that. Now you're both sore. Just keep the lines of communication open. And when you get to that level where you can have a real contract and especially have an agent, that's a lot easier because the agents handle it and things just go a lot smoother on jobs. Okay. The absolute last thing I'm going to say, I know this is getting long, is that not all production companies are going to want to give you contracts, especially small ones. So if you're in the beginning of your career, which I think a lot of people are who watch this channel, you're not getting a contract. If you ask them for a contract, they're like, next. Okay. So in the beginning, you're going to have to probably work without them. You're not going to really have very like solid terms that you're working on. You're just trying to get exposure and get work. And these companies have such small profit margins that if they had to pay you without the job happening, they'd go out of business. So just try to understand that from their point of view. Eventually, if you want to make a long-term career at this, have a family, buy a house, buy an Amira, or whatever the camera is of the day, you need to run this like a company, and you need to start getting things like contracts, pay or play. You need to have these things lined up, because when you're working at really high rates, say like $3,000 a day, if I book a job that's a week long and I turn down everything else because of that, and then that job goes away and I don't get paid, that's a huge problem for my company as a cinematographer. So that's the reason this exists. It doesn't happen in the beginning, but as you go longer into this, say like 10 years, 20 years into it, these are things that are really important. If you don't find companies that work this way, you're going to have a really hard time, I think, sustaining as a cinematographer and making like reliable income. Okay, so that's gonna wrap it up for this video. This went a little bit longer than I wanted to, but this is information that I did not know when I started as a freelancer in general, and specifically as a cinematographer in New York City and then going to LA. These are things that I learned slowly, so I'm trying to just dump all of this on you right now. That's the goal of this particular series, which is like the cinematography industry series. Give the video a like if you learned something new, which I hope you did. Subscribe to the channel. We've got more coming on this topic and oh so much more. And in the comments below, let me know if you have any more questions about holding, booking, and contract. I will see you guys on the next video. You get out there and plan better, shoot better. I shot in two directions on this one.